But all right, so it is 11:05. We are 5 minutes after, and we have 31 amazing Lady Titans with us. And so I would love to go ahead and get us started for our July monthly meeting. We have an amazing guest, Dave Rothacker, here to talk to us. He is an amazing author. Can't even list off the amount of books he's written, but he is a part of Go Time. He wrote books with Ben and Chris Hunter, Ben Stark and Chris Hunter, and just absolutely amazing to talk to and learn from. And he's going to share one of his favorite books, as well as, since he is such a book guy, he's actually doesn't just have one to share with us, but several. But we'll be focusing on one, and that, let me see here, was going to be The Art of Impossible. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Dave to take the stage and go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and jump in with what you'd like to talk to us this month. And we are recording this, ladies, so if you miss anything, we will be able to go back and take a look at it, and we will be sharing links in the chat, so keep an eye out on that chat. Dave, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Danielle. Hello, everyone. I'm going to start off with talking a little bit about, okay, how did I get into this whole book reading thing? Was I, was I in childhood like this, or did it come about in later life? And through school, I read. I like to read. Nothing like I'm presently reading or like I've read for the last 40 years. But I did have the reading thing in me. I think the very first business book I read was In Search of Excellence, which was published in 1981, and that really got the whole business book thing going out there. But so I'll just tie in a little bit of history about myself, and because that kind of ties into the reading as well. But I grew up in the grocery business, large grocery chain store type business. And after 10 years, I fumbled around a little bit, but I ended up working for an HVAC contractor. And at the time, I was working security in a nightclub, and I was going to school part-time. I was 28 years old. And my friend said, hey, come over here and drive a truck, and that'll help you get through school and blah, blah, blah. So one week on the job, and I thought, oh man, this is pretty cool. And so I thought, I think I'm gonna just put the whole college thing on standby and devote myself to this job. 2 weeks in, they gave me keys to the office, and I would go in early every day and read for about an hour. And what I read were the installation manuals of the equipment that we were installing. I had zero technical background, zero mechanical background. I am not mechanically inclined, but all in my life, from as long as I can remember, I've had a really a passion for people who are mechanical, and I love to see what they can create, what they can fix, that sort of thing. So I really fell in love with the industry right off the bat. I spent 1 year driving the truck. I had the opportunity at 29 years old to go into service operations. This was a large mechanical company, or be an install helper. At 29, in my infinite wisdom, I thought, well, I'm too old to be climbing up ladders. I think I'm going to go into service operations. Well, part of my background had been in accounting and business, so it wasn't really all that out of my comfort zone to go the business route. So the first 3 or 4 years of my life, of my career, I really delved into the mechanical and technical side of our industry. And by that I meant I just read everything I could get my hands on. And this is when I started to get the fever for reading, because I would read and then I talk to the text, ask the text questions. And I was starting to see, kind of the correlation between reading and the real world. And I did that for about 4 years. About 4 years in, well, probably a little earlier than that, I got an opportunity to be an installation manager. And starting about that time, I threw myself into all things business. And that's really when I started reading about business. I'm probably in my early 30s at the time, and I was really getting the bug to read. About 5, 6 years into the industry, I started to get a little dismayed. It was like everything I'm reading out there, and the business, by the way, of the books that what I were reading were not related to HVAC. It was more mainstream business, and what I was reading was not happening in our world, and I got frustrated. And then I read more, and I started looking at, when people would ask me, well, what do you read? What's the genre? A genre is like a classification of books. And I would tell everyone I'm reading fantasy. Oh, I thought you were reading business books. Well, the way I looked at it was, I viewed it as fantasy because we weren't ever going to see that in our world, in the HVAC world. So I kind of had a bit of a chip, a bit of a frustration thing going on, at the time. But that's at that time, probably in the late 80s, is when I really started to go on a tear, mid to late 80s, go on a tear, and really just start devouring business books. So a lot of times I get asked, what's your favorite book? And I give recommendations. And after a little bit of a while, I started to think to myself, we all have a different story. We're all living a different life. I mean, even though some of us could be a service manager one company, service manager the other company, we all have different things going on in our life. So when you ask me what my favorite book is, you really ought to have an understanding of me and maybe what I'm going through. So, because if I say, man, I really love this book, and you read it and don't see any correlation to your life or anything you're dealing with, or anything of interest, it's like, well, Dave recommended it. He reads lots of books, so I always think it's good to maybe have an understanding of what that person is more about. Now I've been on this book tear, especially in a kind of a national way in our industry, since about 1998. So a lot of people do know me, and a lot of people do understand, kind of where I'm coming from, and with the book recommendations that I'm giving. So everything I'm talking about today is really things I'm really passionate about, and I have a tendency to kind of speed up, maybe get a little animated. But if anyone has any questions, and I can't multitask, so I can't see the chat. So Danielle, if somebody has a question, just kind of give me the heads up as we're going through this. But feel free at any time to just say, Dave, stop, ask the question. So anyhow.
Will do.
Cool. So the books that I have been really, really devouring over the last 20 years have been about psychology, design, leadership, and marketing. Early on, I really read a lot about management, but I just didn't have that much of a passion for the management side of it, with the exception of a book called First Break All the Rules. And we're not gonna link out to that one, Danielle, because it's an old book, but I'm just painting a little history on that one. But that one was, and I referred to that book for years and years and years as my most favorite book on management ever. And I'm going to talk a little bit down the road here a little bit about the book that actually replaced that. But that was kind of my the extent of much research on and reading on management. So the book that that I'm seeing right now is my most favorite book is called The Art of Impossible. But prior to that, I had uh, I had spoken about the book Grit, and the book Grit, published in 2016 by Angela Duckworth, was, until The Art of Impossible, my most favorite book ever. Well, why was that my most favorite book? And it was because Angela Duckworth talks about a grit, which is passion and perseverance. And while I had passion, I lacked on the perseverance part. And I that was really what sucked me into that book. What she wrote about developing perseverance. And the other part of that book is she talks a lot about purpose. And I had such a strong drive to figure out my purpose, and that started about 30 years ago, and I could never really figure it out. I finally figured it out in about 2018, but it took me a long time. So when I had read what Angela had said about passion, or rather about purpose, that really drew me in. But the biggest thing I think from that book is, she had this sort of pet peeve about the um, graduate commencement speakers speaking about just follow your passion, just follow your passion. Well, when she goes, how is a college graduate supposed to know what they're passionate about? That hit me right between the eyes, because that's exactly where I was at. I had no idea what I was passionate about. I mean, zero idea. And her prescription for that was basically follow your interests, and and just keep following your interest until something clicks, and then follow that road further down. So that was the thing about Grit, and that was why that was my most favorite book. I actually read that book 7 times. I couldn't get enough of it. But the book that I was really going to talk to you guys today about is The Art of Impossible, and by Steven Kotler. And this book does, and you could post that link to that and Grit if you can, Danielle. But that book does pick up on the passion purpose part of what Angela was working about. If you get a chance, uh, I suggest, and I didn't get a link for this, but it's going to be really, really easy to find. Angela Duckworth does a TED Talk, and all you got to do is put Angela Duckworth, Duck like Duck, Worth Worth, Duckworth, in Google, and her talk is going to come up because it's very, very popular. It's definitely worth the 18 minutes, the standard 18-minute TED Talk. So the Art of Impossible, and the way that the author describes impossible is, one second here. Impossible is stuff that's never been done before, and most people believe that it never will be done. And that would be something similar to going to the moon, like they call the moonshot, or a 4-minute mile. Breaking the 4-minute mile at one point was believed that no one could ever possibly do that. And so the way that the author refers, that's how he refers to impossible. But a sub side of the way that to impossible is the stuff that we ourselves believe is impossible for us. And the book is a prescription based on a formula to achieve peak performance, and actually obtain that impossible. Now, the book is based on, it's a combination of things: psychology, neuroscience, and the one knock on the book is the neuroscience part of it, because he delves into the well, basically he delves into neuroscience, and he ties that into the achieving the things in his formula, and every aspect of it is tied into neuroscience. Some people get a little weighed down in that part of it. I personally think it's fascinating, and it's just something that's of a lot of interest to me. You can read the book and just sort of, you don't have to get too weighed down by the neuroscience part of it. So I don't believe it's a problem, but there is a little bit of a knock on that out there. Now, the formula that Steven has developed, it's based in biology, and the way to achieve the impossible is through something called flow. And I'm just going to ask a quick question here, just to kind of get a gauge on this real quick. Of course, my mouse is not working. Anybody familiar with the concept of flow?
I am. I was just talking about flow the other day.
Of course you are, Liz.
I love it.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
Okay, flow is about like what gives you an optimal experience, like what makes things satisfying. So Csikszentmihalyi, who wrote the theory of flow, said that he found that people who go through something hard and challenging, once they're done, they're very satisfied. They're very happy. It's not actually living a happy life or an ease-free life that is satisfying. It's actually going through a challenge, surviving the challenge, and that is when you're the most content.
Said it better than I could.
I'm a fan of Csikszentmihalyi. Yeah.
Oh, I know. It just, for those of you who don't know, Liz is a sister from another mother for me.
Yes.
I've never met anyone in this industry who has gone down these same paths of psychology and neuroscience. And I know a lot of you guys know that, but I always have to.
I know. I'm like,
mention
oh.
it. Yeah, but yeah, that's exactly what flow is, and just to flow. When you get into either work, or it could be something athletic, sports. It's not TV. TV. If you get the binge thing on Netflix, that's not flow. You could still watch it for 20 hours, and that's not flow, because flow, it has to be a challenge. There has to be some challenge in the activity. And the thing that one of the things that I go into total flow mode on is when I write the Saturday rabbit hole for the service roundtable, because that's the only place where I use a certain style of writing. It's kind of creative nonfiction, and I don't use that anywhere else. And I really, really love that. And most of those rabbit holes I'm writing Saturday morning when I'm publishing it, and I just go into a total. You could probably, bop me upside of the head, and I'm not even going to know, because I'm so into to what I'm writing. I'm sure a lot of you guys have gone into a flow mode. Anyone want to take a shot at maybe something that, like an activity that you get into where you lose track of time and you just love it? I'm looking for, specifically, I'd like to hear a work related one though. Anyone?
I was going to say owning a business is like that, just in general.
Dave,
Yeah.
I'm going to say onboarding an employee. So you get right into the flow because it's a brand new person you can make an impression on. So you're very much centered and focused on what you're trying to accomplish with them.
Yeah, golden, Lori. Really, really golden.
And I'll jump in there and say that, like, I'm a geek. And so, like, I love when I get presented problems for our customers from our certified providers. And I get to put my coding hat back on and go back into my software programming days and go in and be able to write thousands of lines of code and fix their issue within, minutes instead of weeks or, months of trying to do it manually. So that's what I just get really sucked into and love to do.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool, Danielle. Yeah, and just real quick to kind of speak to something Lori said. Oh my God, I've got a book for that one. The Power of Moments. And I don't have a link for that, Danielle, but The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. It is such a good book. It talks about when you first engage with somebody and what a powerful opportunity is to make an impression on them. And what Lori just said just so ties into that. That book is golden. The power of moments. So yeah, so you guys had those were good examples of the whole flow thing. So what the book is about is, in addition to what I've already just mentioned, but it's about separating the formula to achieve flow into certain different categories. So you got drive, goals, and grit. And under drive, and this is how the author actually breaks the book down. So under drive, under the category of drive, you've got curiosity, passion, purpose, autonomy, and mastery. And he takes you through each one of those. And as he takes you through each one, he also ties in the neuroscience behind that. And one final thing on the whole neuroscience of everything. We have different regions of the brain, and I could guarantee you Liz could probably explain this better than me, but I'm not going to get deep into it. But we have different regions of our brain, and the most ancient part of our brain evolved from the days when we had to survive. And so whether we were dealing with flight or fight or trying to go out and hunt food, all of that, we had to learn how to do it, fight, flight, that sort of thing. And that part of that, our brain still answers to a lot of that. And so that is how the neuroscience of it relates in part to a lot of that original programming in our brain. So like I said, he goes through the main categories of drive, goals, and grit. Well, let me backtrack on a minute. The drive, goals, and grit are basically under the category of motivation. But the four categories overall that make up the book are motivation, learning, creativity, and flow. And so that's just a basic breakdown on the book. This is one of those books where you really can't kind of just glance through it. I think to get the most out of it, you really have to sit down, read it. I'm not sure that those summary companies that summarize books, I'm not sure that this one is a good one to do that. I recommend going through the whole book. Any questions on that book, The Art of Impossible? Okay, I'm gonna go on to another book called The Power of Purpose. And there's a handful of really good purpose books out there. There is, you could put the link up for this one too, Danielle. The author, Richard Leiter, has been a practitioner of the pursuit of purpose for probably 40 years. I like Simon Sinek. I like Start With Why. If you haven't seen Simon Sinek's 18-minute TED Talk, totally recommend that. Simon Sinek, Sinek, TED Talk. And he talks about purpose as well. And he's probably one of the, maybe if not the most popular author on the pursuit of purpose and why. But Richard Leider has been doing it for 40 years, and he approaches it from a little bit different angle. And one of the things that all purpose authors touch on is that purpose, we have purpose inside. Purpose is not something that you go out there and discover. It's something you go inside and uncover. And Leider says that purpose is an active expression of the deepest dimension within us. And his book basically walks you through the pursuit of purpose. And it's a really, really good book. I like that one a lot. Okay, the next 4 books I talk about are going to be based on and around management. So I had mentioned to y'all before that the book First Break All Your Rules, which I first read about a little over 20 years ago, I guess. My favorite book on management. It was based on research by the Gallup Company, and this is one of the things that I pursue in my reading. I'm not a real heavy fan of self-help. The kind of material that I like to talk about, like to write about, is based in science, and it's based on evidence. And the research that the Gallup Company has put into the topic of management is the most extensive in the history of mankind. There is more data and research that company has done on management than any other entity in the world in history. So I got my dose of, I got indoctrinated into the beliefs of the Gallup Company, way back. That is until a couple of years ago, and 2 of the Gallup Company executives wrote a book called "It's the Manager." Now I know a lot of you have heard me talk about this book before. It's because it is my most favorite book on management, but it's 21st century. It's really ground in the reality of today. And I think it was I should know this off the top of my head. Yeah, it was written just prior to the pandemic, but everything in that book really is good material to navigate in the time of the pandemic. So it's divided up into many chapters. Most chapters are maybe 3-4 pages long. So you don't get bogged down in it. You don't have to read it from cover to cover. You can look in the index and look at a scenario that you might need some help with. Right then, at that point, you go right to that chapter and you get good clarification on it. It's the Manager, and it also gives you a free code for a strengths assessment. Now, the Gallup Corporation is really big on utilizing strengths, and they've put they're the leading authority on it as well. They've put a ton of work into strengths assessment, and so on and so forth. And so probably a good portion of the book, or the end of the book rather, is about strengths. And I think they identified like 33 or 34 strengths, and they talk about each one in detail. So that's the book. It's the Manager. Now here's a fact that actually Gallup uncovered a long time ago, and they have done nothing but to substantiate it, and it's still truer today than it ever was. People do not leave companies. they leave their managers. Oh man, I see Danielle identifying with that one. I couldn't see everybody here, so I had the thing minimized, but I saw Danielle identifying with that. But it is so true. Oh my God, all of my experience speaks to that, and it's true. People do not leave companies; they leave managers. The second book in this group is called Well-Being at Work, and this is written by one. I think it's the same. Oh yeah, it's the same. It's the exact same executives as It's the Manager. It's based in Gallup research, and it well-being at work, exactly what you think it is. It's based around the categories of career, social, financial, physical, and community. And it's if you read It's the Manager, you absolutely have to read Well-Being at Work. Really, really good book. Next book is called Love Plus Work, and all these, by the way, Danielle, are in the links are there for these books.
Yeah, I'm posting them as you're saying them.
Oh, okay. I can't see the chat, so
You're good. I got you.
yeah. I think I've mentioned this before when I've spoken to you guys at LadyTitans. I cannot multitask, and both my wife and both of my girls are like ridiculous multitaskers, and I know every one of you guys probably can multitask way better than me. I can't even look at the chat and talk to you at the same time. So, Love Plus Work is written by Marcus Buckingham. He's the author of First Break All the Rules. And he's also the author of another book, and I'm not going to really go into this book too much, but it's the second book, or the fourth book I'm going to talk about is 9 Lies About Work, 9 Lies About Work. But Love Plus Work right now is probably my number one recommendation this year so far. For the fact that it applies to probably more people than The Art of Impossible, because there's just I know for a fact there's just a lot of people aren't gonna you're not gonna pursue The Art of Impossible just for the fact of the neuroscience part of it alone. But Love Plus Work, Buckingham speaks about exactly what it says. You know, doing what you love, work, that sort of thing. And he talks about something called red threads. Anyone familiar with what a red thread is by any chance? So a red thread is a something that's of interest and passion, something that we're all about, and they're woven through our lives. And when you talk about red threads and work, what you're looking for are certain aspects of your red threads, and can you apply them at work? There is some research out there that says if you can incorporate 20% of your love and passion in work, you're going to be fine, and you're going to have a good job, depending on the whole management part of it. But you're gonna like your work. I'm not quite sold on that part myself, but there is a lot of research out there on that. 9 Lies About Work is Marcus Buckingham, and it's contrary. He talks a lot about a lot of contrary opinion to what you hear out there today. For instance, the concept of an annual review is like taboo, and I agree with that. I think I was writing that should have been banished 10 or 12 years ago, and he really identifies with that. He really a lot of good data on why you should do away with this whole concept of the annual review. And just really quickly, one of the things that you can do is you should be having quick connect conversations with your coworkers. And the more that you do that, and then the book It's the Manager talks about that. It also talks about 4 other structured conversations you should be having with your employees. So if you follow that and you're tuned in conversation with your people, there's no need for an annual review type of thing. But that's what that book is written about. A lot of contrary opinion to kind of the status quo. And to be honest with you, I believe in just about everything he writes about. You know, there's so much change needed in our business out there that that needs to change. It needs to happen. So that's it on the books that I was going to talk about. I wanted to tell you, okay, get this one all the time, Dave. How do you find books? Well, couple different ways. Not number one. I'm just gonna give them to you because I don't really have a hierarchy here. But I find books to read in 2 magazines. I only subscribe to 2 magazines anymore. That would be Fast Company and Harvard Business Review. And really that's it. I don't subscribe to any magazines, but I often find good books to read from those 2 sources. I also I'll give you an example of how authors help me find books. This is a pretty interesting one. So back in about 2005, a young gentleman that I was working with recommended a book called A Whole New Mind to me. It was written by Dan Pink. Now, I know a lot of Lady Titans know who Dan Pink is because it's discussed a lot in the community. But Dan Pink, A Whole New Mind. And the ironic thing is this young man who recommended the book since 2005 has probably only read 2 other books. He just recommended the book to me, but I read it and I fell in love with it. It introduced me to the concept of design. And I was just, I just embraced that concept. And because I did, I embraced Dan Pink, and I followed Dan Pink throughout his career. And every book he wrote, it spoke to something that I felt that I could really connect with. So that's like authors. So if I read an author like Dan Pink, I'm reading just about a lot of the books that he's recommending. Dan Pink introduced. He didn't like introduce like. And now today I'm introducing the Beatles from New England. He just introduced or made popular an author today that I know a lot of you know, and that is Adam Grant. And Adam Grant is a psychologist who's about as in tune as anyone on the planet on the workplace and healthy workplace issues. So Dan Pink, Adam Grant. So that's how I found that. And then a lot of times in the books of these popular authors that I'm reading, or in the books of the authors I'm reading, I do get a lot of good referrals that way. The other thing is, if I got turned on to the field of psychology, and after I kind of studied it for a while, I narrowed it down to the field of positive psychology. And once I kept pursuing that, I started getting all kinds of good ideas from that. So those are a few of the ways that I learned about books. Any questions by any chance?
Have you seen the Next Big Idea Club? Because Dan Pink runs that one. I think Adam Grant does too.
They do. Susan Cain and 2 others.
Malcolm
I get
Gladwell.
The book. Yeah. Malcolm Gladwell. I read every one of his books. I did see that, and I got invited to that, like, kind of right off the bat. But I'm buying the books before they're coming out. And so I just like to control my own when I buy it. So that's the only reason I don't subscribe to that, because you pay X amount of dollars. Are you part of that, Liz?
I actually, I like read more of their forums now because same thing. I usually buy the books before they come out.
Okay. Yeah. So that's why I don't subscribe to that. But really, really good people. Man, talk about putting like all my favorite authors together like that. So
Hey,
okay.
Dave, I have a question. I'm sure everybody wants to know, how do you find the time to read? You know, almost all these folks on this call, they're so busy with jobs and lives and everything else. How do you find the time to read? I know I do a lot of books on tape. I do audio. But yeah, I open up a book and I'm asleep. Boom.
That's a great question, Lori. That's a great question. And well, number one, I read first thing in the morning because I can't read in the evenings, and that was yeah, I just can't read in the evenings. But I have a good answer for that. So and well, I'm retired now, so I do not work full time. But I went through a 25-year stretch in management, and prior to that, 5 more years. And I averaged reading 1 to 2 hours a day, and I was working 60 hours a week. I think Liz had mentioned the just the most perfect explanation for that a while ago. It was like, some people have to have a perfect house, right? They have to have it perfectly clean. Well, I didn't have to have a perfect house. I didn't have to have everything perfectly clean. Things suffered. That was my priority. I was passionate about reading. And maybe I didn't average 2 hours a day, but I at least averaged 1 hour, at least 1 hour a day when I was working 60 to 70 hours a week. And through my entire career in management, I did average over 60 hours a week. So it's a priority. Okay, I want to talk to you guys about something, a technique I learned from an industry writer by the name of Dan Holohan. He turned me on to it. Someone else actually come up with the technique. Dan Holohan, in my opinion, is the finest writer that our industry has ever seen. He's retired. He's written a whole bunch of books on hydronic and steam heat, but he doesn't write in a dry, technical way. He's a very, very creative writer. And Dan gave me my first shot to write online back in 1998 on his website. So the things that you guys see that I'm doing in the Saturday Rabbit Hole, which is exclusive to Service Nation, but it's creative nonfiction. I was doing that on Dan's site way, way back. And I know a lot of you guys know one of my colleagues at the time who was writing was Ellen Rohr. She was doing the same thing back then. And Dan learned a technique, it's called clustering, from an author by the name of Gabrielle Rico. And the book is Writing the Natural Way. And there is a link for that one, Danielle. Writing the Natural Way. And so anyone asks me about writing and books about writing, that's my #1 recommendation to recommend. Writing the Natural Way. And here it is. It's something very basic. You take a blank sheet of paper. You in the middle of the blank sheet of paper, you put a word, whatever you're trying to think of. It just doesn't really even matter. Whatever it is, maybe it's a problem at work. Maybe it's an article you're writing. Maybe it's a speech you're giving. If it's a speech you're giving, you write the topic name. Whatever describes it from a 64,000 foot view. You write it in the middle, and then you simply write down. It's a brain dump, and you write down anything that comes to mind. And the important part of this part of it is you don't think. Now, here's a technical way that you're supposed to do this, and then I have kind of developed my own way. And so the technical way is you write that main concept down. You write another thing that comes to mind. You circle it, And then from that circle, you think about whatever comes to mind and you write those down, each one from that circle, draw a line and circle that. What I do is I just do the circle in the middle of the page, and then just anything that comes to mind, I'm writing them down and um, and circling them. And I'm just going to share the screen real quick, and I'll show you kind of what it looks like. So that's just an example of clustering. And I have a different notebook for every topic that I track and follow, which is around 50 to maybe 50 to 80 books, just like the ones you see here, right here. I don't use them all. I only use about 20 at a time. But that's just a kind of a example of what clustering looks like. So you don't think about it, you just get it out of your brain. You write the thing down, you circle it, and you go as hard and fast as you can. And then when the ideas stop coming to mind, you put your pen down, you back away, and you leave it. Now, the way that this technique is taught is they're saying, okay, go ahead, you do this, and then you go do something physical. You don't want to do anything too strenuous. Walking is good, riding a bike is good, light exercising, light working out is good. It's just a way to get out and get the body moving. You do that for about an hour. You come back and you re-engage with what you've written, and you'll read what you've written, and ideas will start slowly coming to you, and you'll get more of a clarification on the overall topic that you're working on. Now, when you come back, when you revisit the cluster after doing something physical, you could do that. You could take as much as a day to come back. If you're doing it much more than a day, you might have to spend a little time reclustering it a little bit, because if you let too much time go by, that's not a good thing. But what this is teaching us to do is mine our subconscious. There's all kinds of information, material, everything we've learned is in our subconscious, and it comes out. And this is just a good way to mine it.
Do you map it after you mine it? Because, you look at that and you go, okay, there's clustering and then there's mapping. So there's like pre-work of clustering, but then do you go back and map it after you mine it?
Well, the clustering really is mind mapping. That's okay. Another name for it. I just like, because I've learned it through the Rico method. And by the way, Danielle's got a link there. She's going to share that. Lifehacker, which is a website, talks about exactly what I just explained. So it's a good way to do that. I got one more thing I want to share real quickly here, and this is something that I don't know if I kind of stumble on it on my own or not, but I learned, I really saw this come to fruition in the 2 years that I worked with Ben Stark and Chris, but this is about Ben, when we wrote the book, when we wrote the It's Go Time book. In journaling. So Ben journals, and let's just say a topic came up during the day, whatever it might be, he'll make a little journal note on it, that day, and he'll write about, and I don't even know exactly what he writes or how he does it, but whatever it is, he'll make notes on it as to how it's important to him. And that's what I suggest you guys do too. Make notes on whatever you're journaling about, whatever happened that day, like make a note on how it's important to you. And this is another way to nurture and incubate our subconscious. so you get in the habit of doing that. Now, most of the time, I would say 95, 98% of the time, you're going through this process, and it's a process to help you think clearly as well. And it'll go in the book, and maybe you'll never go back and look at it. But there may be something that's coming along, and let's just say it's the pandemic. And let's just say, as a leader of a company, you're journaling about how you are handling the pandemic in your business. And as you journal each day, you'll develop that. You'll build onto what you've already written. You don't go back and reference it or anything like that, but you will build onto it. And over a period of time, what you're doing, in addition to nurturing your subconscious, is you're building your intuitive powers. And this is what I saw with Ben. Ben has built and sold 3 companies. He has unbelievable intuition when it comes to business today. And that just didn't happen because he was an owner of an AC company. It happened because he developed this technique, and it was just journaling, to build the library that his intuition draws from. Now, that's all sort of hazy, but that's how it worked, And so, this is how this doesn't have to be complicated, and you don't really have to, try to look this whole thing up online, because I'm not even sure it is online. I through reading a couple of books and seeing this develop and come to fruition with other people, I know that it works. So that's basically it. You journal about something. If it's something important, you extend it out. You ask a lot of questions about it. You track it as you move forward, and you're building your internal subconscious database that will drive your intuition down the road. So I'm trying to leave you a couple minutes, Danielle.
Awesome. No, thank you so much, Dave. That's great. We just have a few minutes left, and any questions from anybody that we'd like to finish up with, Dave?
Well, we're leaving my contact information here, so anybody,
Yep.
Please feel free to contact me.
Yeah, I did put that in the chat as well. So yes, if you would like to speak to Dave, please feel free to reach out. And also, just a shameless plug is that please make sure and log into community. We do have our new amazing Lady Titans group for Lady Titans to be able to use on our community page. So please go in there, post. We have an awesome icebreaker that Jessica added at the beginning when we first launched it. So please go in there and add information and just introduce yourselves. We'd love to get all of our Lady Titans active in our community group. So that way we have a great safe place to have conversations. So please go in there, and we'll also have additional information and such that we can post in there about our meetings and everything like that. So we'll add some content from Dave as well later on this week, some follow-up. And again, this was recorded, so then that way we can make sure that and distribute that with our monthly newsletter. So if you've missed anything or want to go back and get some of those book ideas that Dave mentioned, please feel free to re-listen to that recording. Awesome. All right. Well, ladies, if you don't have any other questions for Dave, thank you so much for your time today. It was amazing hearing about your process and books. We really do appreciate it. We as leaders always need to help each other, help ourselves grow, and just setting aside, that time, forcing ourselves to be able to take that time for ourselves is a must-have so that we can continue to help ourselves and our teams. So thank you so much.
Welcome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. All right, ladies, until we see you again, have an amazing month.
You.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any questions for us before we close out the meeting?
Any final questions?
I saw Kelly jump off mute and it's connecting again.
Yep, that's what I wanted to ask again. Okay. All right, well, I do have another meeting to jump to, so I'm going to go ahead and jump as well. Again, thank you everyone for joining.
Bye, have a good one.